Easy Explained, Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus by Ludwig Wittgenstein. Proposition 4, Part 1. Going to split this proposition into two parts. I'm calling this first part the linguistic turn and the purpose of philosophy. Two really big concepts, topics, themes we're going to get to here in this first part of Proposition 4. So let's kick things off. Looking at Proposition 4 itself, Wittgenstein says, a thought is a senseful proposition, very much so following from his work through Proposition 3, kind of constructing what thoughts are, what it means to make sense and align with words and language, and how propositions work as they align with signs and symbols. Really just carrying that over and coming to a new propositional conclusion. Let's start to get into the nitty-gritty here, maybe more than we've done so far with Proposition 4.001. Wittgenstein says that the totality of propositions is language. We're now using what we've gotten to so far to take the next step into defining what language is, right? So it's all propositions that we can make. Taking another step into Proposition 4.002, this is where we start to begin to see Wittgenstein working on the linguistic turn in philosophy. It comes to known to be called that, we're really moving into looking at all philosophy as just playing with language. So let's see how he starts to set this up. He says that human beings possess the ability to construct languages in which every sense can be expressed without having any idea of how and what each word means. Meaning we really just come to rely on language once we learn it for just trying to get to sense, to making sense. It's a crutch for us. So just as one speaks without knowing how the individual sounds are produced, language disguises thoughts, right? Sometimes we got to speak to get our thoughts out. Sometimes our thoughts only become clear when we start trying to dress them up in language. Let's keep going with this. The next part of his linguistic turn, Proposition 4.003, he says that it's no wonder that the deepest problems are really not problems. Going back to, his mentor Bertrand Russell's problems of philosophy. For Wittgenstein here, he's saying they're not philosophical problems. They're really not problems like that. We're just getting lost in the language, right? We're getting stuck up in the words. So to kind of bring this to a conclusion here, Proposition 4.0031, Wittgenstein concludes that all philosophy is critique of language. That's really what a lot of people are doing here. We're just running circles around each other, playing language games. So Proposition 4.01, the bolded part here, you're also going to see again in Proposition 4.021. So a big theme here, it recurs twice. Proposition is a picture of reality. A proposition is a model of reality as we conceive it. Right? This is going back to depictions, right? An alignment between correct, incorrect, true, and false. That brings us to Proposition 4.1. A proposition represents the obtaining and non-obtaining of states of things. Again, this goes back to the world being everything that is the case. It is or it isn't. It is correct or it is false. It is true or false, correct or incorrect. Right? That's the big theme here. And to wrap up this first part of Proposition 4, going to wrap up with what I think is Wittgenstein's purpose of philosophy, what he says he thinks it really should be instead of just playing language games. So in Proposition 4.112, he says, the purpose of philosophy is the logical clarification of thoughts. Philosophy is not a set of teachings, but an activity. Philosophy is something you do. Philosophical work consists essentially of elucidations. We'll get to that more at the end. Philosophy results not in philosophical propositions, but in propositions becoming clear. Philosophy should make clear and delimit sharply thoughts that are otherwise, as it were, cloudy and blurred. So this can even harken all the way back to Descartes, right? We need to have thoughts that are clear and distinct. For Wittgenstein, that's largely the same project here. We shouldn't be trying to confuse and muddle things and using language that people can't understand. We should just be taking everyday thoughts and trying to make them as clear as possible for everyone to agree on and communicate with. So that takes us through his big linguistic turn in philosophy, really a big critique there that philosophy is just language games, and brings us to what he thinks the purpose of philosophy should be. So it's part 1 of Proposition 4 for now. Hope this helps.